his field marshal in Pakistan, Asim Munir. I will say that since Field Marshal Munir welcomed us with the Prime Minister in Islamabad, I have joked that I have two.
Wait, did you catch who is standing together in Switzerland right now? This is a massive geopolitical shift playing out in real time, and the underlying strategy is completely hidden in plain sight.
Very, very important people in my life, an Indian and a Pakistani. The Indian is my wife, and the Pakistani is Field Marshal Munir. And I've probably talked to Field Marshal Munir more than I've talked to anybody else over the last 3 months. Would not be here without his statesmanship. He is, of course, a great military leader, but I think he's shown himself to be a great.
Look closely at the body language and positioning here. JD Vance is making a highly calculated public appearance alongside Pakistani Field Marshal Asim Munir and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. This isn't just your standard diplomatic photo op. Notice how the U.S. delegation goes out of its way to highlight a close relationship with Pakistan's military leadership. Why does this matter so much? Because while everyone is distracted by domestic noise, the U.S. is quietly leveraging Pakistan's military influence to box in Iran. Pakistan shares a massive, heavily fortified border with Iran, and getting their field marshal on board is a direct strategic countermeasure. If you read between the lines of this summit, it's a clear signal that the United States is building a military coalition right in Tehran's backyard. It's the ultimate carrot and stick approach, and having Pakistan's military brass standing right there is a massive piece of leverage. The entire power dynamic in the Middle East is shifting right in front of our eyes, and this single wide shot proves exactly how they are doing it.
To accept it. You all know what the so-called President of the United States was saying. He had made a complete 100-degree turn. He was saying that Iran must surrender unconditionally. Iran has no right to do this. It has.
Did you catch that reaction from the crowd? Look at the officials in this Iranian assembly room. They are completely locked in. President Pezeshkian is publicly drawing a hard line in the sand about uranium enrichment, and the audience's body language tells you everything you need to know about their domestic stance. The rhetoric here is entirely uncompromising, acting as a direct public defiance of the threats coming from the U.S. What's wild about observing this footage is the sheer timing of it all. While peace talks and summits are supposedly kicking off in Switzerland, Tehran's leadership is simultaneously whipping up domestic support and doubling down on their nuclear ambitions. They are publicly daring the U.S. to make a move. You can literally feel the tension radiating from the officials sitting in those chairs. This isn't just standard political theater, this is a regime backed into a corner, fully aware of the military threats looming over their infrastructure, yet choosing to broadcast their absolute defiance to the world. The stakes couldn't possibly be higher right now.
The U.S. may take over the strait in the future if they have to and collect tolls. The president described this as the United States being the guardian angel of the Strait of Hormuz and the Middle East. And the president said ultimately that would involve the U.S. taking 20% of the.
Check out the chyron on this breaking news alert. The United States is explicitly floating the idea of taking over the Strait of Hormuz and collecting tolls, literally taking 20% of the oil that passes through. Let that sink in for a second. The Strait of Hormuz is the single most critical oil choke point on the entire planet. Floating a public plan to become the guardian angel of this waterway isn't just a tough negotiation tactic. It is an outright economic declaration of dominance. If you look at the strategic reality of putting this on a broadcast, the U.S. is publicly laying out the blueprint for a total blockade of Iranian economic infrastructure. They are completely bypassing back-channel diplomacy and putting the ultimate military threat right on national television. They are telling Tehran, either you agree to the new terms immediately, or we will systematically dismantle your primary source of revenue by brute force. It is a massive, unprecedented escalation, hidden right there in plain sight on the ticker. Pause and read the exact text on this graphic. You close it and you won't have a country. Those are the reported exact words delivered to Iranian officials overnight. Look at the sheer bluntness of this message. There is absolutely zero diplomatic ambiguity here. When high-level international communications resort to telling foreign leaders they won't even make it back to their home country if they attempt a blockade, you know the traditional diplomatic guardrails are completely gone. This graphic represents a fundamental shift in how the U.S. is conducting these negotiations. They aren't asking for concessions at a table anymore. They are delivering ultimatums with existential consequences attached. It is incredibly rare to see internal military posturing leak out to the press with this level of raw, unfiltered aggression. It shows that the behind-the-scenes reality of these supposed peace talks is basically a ticking powder keg. If Iran decides to call this massive bluff, the entire regional infrastructure is immediately on the chopping block.
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, President Trump told Fox News he better watch his mouth, he better shape up, or we'll take over the rest of the country. And so clearly the president reacting directly to these comments from Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian. And also, President Trump talked about the broader memorandum.
Look at how the reporting frames the timeline here. The U.S. is reportedly holding on to a strict 60-day option to do whatever is deemed necessary if the Iranians don't make serious commitments. This is the ticking clock I was talking about. Notice the strategic messaging layered into this update. The U.S. is establishing a rigid timeline for total compliance. This isn't an open-ended negotiation where they can drag their feet for months. It's a highly compressed, high-stakes pressure cooker. The fact that this specific timeline is being broadcasted serves as a dual message to both Iran and allies that a hard deadline is officially in play. You really have to wonder what happens when day 61 hits. Will we see a sudden return to kinetic military strikes? Or will the Iranian economy completely collapse first due to their crushing hyperinflation? The entire region is holding its breath while these leaders play the most dangerous game of geopolitical chicken imaginable. And the clock is officially counting down. The next 60 days change everything. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the fallout.